Nowadays, a great number of companies have merged and therefore become a lot bigger as opposed to a couple of years ago, when businesses remained small and were run by autonomous individuals. In turn, employees have come to realize that they have become small fish in a very big pond, which could even be compared to a massive ocean. The workflow has dramatically increased. It is pretty obvious to note that conflicts are more likely to occur between work colleagues. These conflicts have a bad influence on the general well-being of an employee as well as the company at large. But did you know that you, as a strong leader of your company, are able to prevent this? Don't be like one of the 35% of leaders who ignores conflict at work. In this tutorial, we will tell you about the different types of conflict, the effects conflict has on employees, and then we'll provide you with 5 guidelines you can implement to resolve conflicts effectively between employees. There are 3 different types of conflict, which are relationship conflict, task conflict, and process conflict. Firstly, we have relationship conflict, which occurs when parties disagree about personal issues that are mostly not work-related, such as simple personality clashes or opposing political views. A good example of relationship conflict is discrimination. The second type of conflict is task conflict. This type of conflict occurs when employees disagree about the task being performed. A relatable example of this which springs to mind is an employee who complains to the manager about his or her fellow colleagues who is not giving his or her desired effort. Process conflicts are conflicts that refer to how production occurs. For instance, conflicts regarding logistics and delegation. Let's take a look at the negative consequences of a conflict. Conflicts negatively affect employees' job satisfaction and overall work performance. Employees eventually become demotivated, take less pride, and don't enjoy working anymore, which leads to a loss of productivity. They also have to deal with a lot of stress at work, and in the worst case resulting in depression and absenteeism, which increases organizational costs. These consequences show us how important it is for a person to take a stand against conflict on the work floor, and therefore it is the responsibility of the leader, which is mostly the manager, to resolve such conflicts as soon as possible. So what is the best way for managers to deal with conflicts? To be honest, there is no general rule of thumb. In fact, different types of conflict resolution vary from situation to situation. The good news, however, is that a number of studies, usually conducted by postgraduates of a business school, has led to some guidelines that a manager should follow to resolve conflicts successfully. The 5 guidelines, in no specific order, are as follows. Start off by trying to prevent conflicts. We all know the saying prevention is better than cure. Therefore, conflict prevention is much easier and more desirable than having to manage the conflict itself. Secondly, avoid taking sides. The truth is that you may align yourself with one party more than the other. However, trying to get in the middle by promoting one's case to the other is a dangerous affair. This may be interpreted as favoritism by other employees and have an adverse effect on your reputation and credibility as a leader. Your job is to be objective and impartial, even if you support one party's position and not the others. As a manager, you want your employees to be able to cope with their disputes independently. This does not mean that you should ignore the conflict. Quite the contrary. You need to acknowledge that an issue exists and encourage the disagreeing parties to resolve it between themselves as soon as possible. Employee self-efficiency is the goal. You don't want your employees to come running to you every time something out of the ordinary happens. You need to give them the tools to work things out in a peaceful manner on their own. The 4th guideline is promoting communication. You must let the disputing parties know that the feud will not be tolerated because of the negative impact it has on the team's morale, motivation, and productivity. With that message, pay for and send them to have a lunch or go for coffee together, and thus give them the opportunity to find a resolution to their problem. Encourage them to get out of the office and talk about their difficulties on a neutral ground. Last, but certainly not least, is to model collaborative behavior. As a manager, you need to promote an environment of professionalism, civility, and respect among the employees, no matter what the issue is or its emotional intensity. Inappropriate behavior should not only be discouraged but penalized in order to prevent it from happening again in the future. So if you keep these 5 guidelines in mind, you will easily resolve or even avoid conflicts between your employees. And like Wayne Dyer said, conflict cannot survive without your participation.